Hey, welcome back to Coca-Cola Wood Studio. So today I am going to be repacking the ball nut shown right there. I have to take all this apart in order to access all that. I am starting up the CNC machine so that I can swing the x-axis over a little bit so that I can reach it from the other side of the machine in order to disassemble that ball nut. Here's the new ball nut. In my last video, I mentioned that this was a 12 millimeter ball nut, but it turns out it's actually a 10 millimeter ball nut. And that makes it really hard to access the little tiny bearings inside that thing. The idea with the installation of the new ball nut is to take that little black sleeve that's inside the ball nut and press it onto the end of the ball screw. And when you spin the ball nut onto the ball screw, it's supposed to go on nice and smoothly and not lose any bearings out of the inside. I was having a hell of a time trying to get this to thread on properly, and I could not get it. So eventually I fiddled around with it off camera. I eventually get there in the end, and it works fine coming up in the future. So this is actually the new ball nut that all the bearings had popped out when I was trying to put it on that ball screw in the last clip. So here I am just trying to feed the ball bearings back in. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos on how to do this, and what it seems to me is that it's a lot easier when you have a bigger diameter ball screw setup. This one's pretty tiny. You can see those tiny little bearings right there. Um, it's just a pain in the butt. So I fiddled around with this. I eventually ended up taking that sleeve right out and placing the bearings inside with a little bit of grease to hold them in place, threading it back on the ball screw, and then putting the dust caps back on. and that eventually worked. Although it took me a few hours to get to that point. I just didn't film it. It was pretty monotonous and boring. And there's a lot of good videos on how to do this. This is not one of those good videos. So here we are, all put back together, just finalizing the reassembly. I ended up having to take the whole ball screw assembly right out of the X-axis gantry. So now I'm just putting it all back together, and it seems to be working great. One other thing that I've always wanted to fix with this machine was the deflection at the end of my bed. Or I guess I should say the side of my bed. Here I'm pushing down with about 15 pounds of force, and it's deflecting about 15 thousandths of an inch. The deflection issues with this machine are completely my fault in the design. Those two rails that go up the middle support the middle of the bed, no problem. But there's nothing supporting the sides where the dial indicator is. So my hope is to create some sort of system to help support that bed all the way across. After I clean up my giant mess that is. So here I'm just putting a straight edge 4-foot T-square on the bottom of my bed. For whatever structure I build here, I want it to be nice and square to the table, just to make life easier in the future. As you can see here, I am trying to build kind of a truss that goes across the whole width of the bed. And the hope is that it will provide some support towards the sides. I have a cutout in the middle to clear the rails and the ball screw, and it's a work in progress, but I think eventually we'll get there. As you'll see here, it looks like I've got the deflection cut to about half. And I think with some more braces on that gusset or truss, if you will, underneath the bed, I think I can stiffen that up a little bit more. Now that the table is somewhat stable and not flopping around in the wind anymore, I'm going to set up a program here to find the lowest spot of the table and then mill the whole thing flat relative to the rest of the machine. I've found that the lower right hand corner of the bed is the lowest spot on the bed. So I will zero off of that position and then mill the whole thing flat to that height. And there we go. The machine is now tuned up, square to the world. It's got a flat bed. Just needs a spoil board screwed back on. And one thing that I've noticed during this entire process was that positioning a camera in the shop is kind of a challenge. So in my next video, I'm going to be building a gantry that mounts from the ceiling that has an articulating arm on it that I can position the camera anywhere I want and not have to trip over it or walk into it or anything like that. So stay tuned for that one. If you've enjoyed this, I would very much appreciate if you could like and subscribe. Anyways, have a great day.